Do you catch yourself saving these little triangles? Now, a lot of these are from binding or just what I call bonus triangles, things that you have to sew over the corner, and I make an extra one. I go ahead and sew it at the time. That way it's already made. As you can see, I just made a bunch there. But these are all pieces that I have that are triangle units, and some of them, like this, that's left over from a quilt. This is extra pieces from a quilt, and so is that. But some of these are just cutoffs from my binding. Now, what do you do with all these? I've got a lot of them. Welcome back to Quilt Crafters Corner. I'm Roberta, and today we're going to talk more about those half square triangles. Now, as you saw, I was cleaning the other day, and I was putting away those cutoffs from bindings that I have, and I went, oh, this box is getting pretty full. I need to do something with it. So I've had this idea in my head of using up these triangles, and it's a great way to use up those pieces that you have, those scraps that you have, and make them into something useful. So I have done half square triangles before. If you want to know the basics on how to do that, I'll put a link in the description for that video. It's a good video if you're looking for the basic steps. But if you're looking more for how to use up those scraps, how to use half square triangles, and let's take a look at some of the things that we can do with the half square triangles. There are a multitude of pattern layouts that you can do with half square triangle. This first one I want to show you is called Twinkling Star, and it really is a beautiful layout for half square triangles. Now, I did this with a fabric that reads as a solid, and what that means is from a distance, you can only see the darker color or the most dominant color. And I used up a lot of my, what I call crumb squares with these. And I made these half square triangles. And then as you start to lay this pattern out, you get this beautiful starburst effect on it. Now, handling the crumb squares correctly around those darkers, where you can have them light and your high values in the center. And then as you go out, you can make it more your own distinct pattern by using your scraps effectively. So as in the center, you've got those high value, and on the outer side, you've got those very low value that kind of is a little darker. You can still see that it's scraps, but it just makes for a really lovely effect in a quilt. Now, this next one I want to talk about is called Geometric. And this design is really a beautiful quilt, especially with the scraps, because it just gives definition to all those lovely triangles that you've got going on, but it also gives you a beautiful scrappiness to it. And some of those old-fashioned quilts that we all love is you can really see it. Now, in this particular picture, I have one corner that's got a really bright, colorful corner on it. And that wasn't done on purpose. That was just kind of using up what I had, laying out what I had to see what would work. Once again, this could be one of those quilts where you start with those really high value, bright colors, more whites and cream colors in the center. And then as you go out, just kind of fade it a little bit, more of an ombre look out to the edges. This could be a great way not only to use up your scraps, but a great way to use those half square triangles effectively. Let's take another look at one more. Now, this one is called Twists and Turns. And I love this because you get such rhythm and flow going through in that spiral effect, kind of going down through the quilt. Now, this isn't very big. You can make these a lot bigger than what I have done here. These were just mainly playing with ideas, getting things to see how they would work, and just experimenting. And that's what a lot of these pictures are. These pictures are experimentation, playing with the half square triangles, seeing what I can do. Now you can take something like this and take more half square triangles and border all the way around this and really make a stunning, lovely quilt. Very original to you, and you're using up your scraps. These are all great ways to use up those scraps that we all have and we don't know what to do with. So let's take a look more at some of the scraps that I have, and I'll give you some ideas. Now here we are at the cutting table, and here are all my triangles, and I'm going to go through and sort these. Everything that's sewn already, I will press out and see what I have and start to lay it out on the design wall to see how I can make these work. Now these could easily go into what I call crumb squares. And this is basically what a crumb square is. It's just pieces of fabric sewn together. Think of a wonky log cabin, or just taking what you have and sewing it together and seeing what's there. Now, all of these can be put into a crumb square, and these can be the start of many crumb squares that I can make. But I wanted you to see some ideas for this, so that you can kind of get some ideas on how to do this. So I have all of these crumb squares that are started, and as you can see, they just need to be trimmed up. And I'll just take, my 6.5 inch ruler, and this is how these go together. Now, actually, this one's going to be a little small. This will probably be a 6 inch instead of a 6.5. Yeah, because there's not quite enough to add to it. And here it's going to be a skinny seam. So, start to pay attention how you put these together so that you get a big enough square. Now, these are all just strips that I've just sat and sewn and sewn and sewn. And these are all really good ideas. And this is what I'm talking about, high value here. This is a white, and then it kind of fades off into the darker colors. Now, this is a great way to, like I said, make that starburst in that center and then go out with your colors. It takes a little bit of planning. It takes a little bit of thought, but it's going to be a stunning quilt when you get that finished. So these are some of the crumb squares that I've done. And like I said, I've got lots of them, from little pieces to big ones. And don't be afraid to start with a very simple 4-patch. Just sew a 4-patch together. This is a log cabin. Here's another good example of a log cabin. It doesn't matter how they go together. It just matters that they go together. And as you can see, I've got darks and lights and all kinds of colors with them. And just start sewing, especially when it's one of those things that you're just sewing fabric together, and it's a very meditative practice. And I just love sitting there and sewing just strips together to get the start of something really pretty and a very unique design. Now, here are some larger ones. And like I said, just sewing strips together and then adding them until they're big enough. Now, if you haven't seen the video on making mountains out of triangles, I take these crumb squares and they go together really lovely. It's at the very end of the video, so you have to get all the way to the end of the video to understand, what I'm doing and the process that I go through. But go take a look at that video, because that quilt turned out absolutely amazing, and it's a beautiful quilt. Great way to use up all those crumb squares or those scraps that you have. And it doesn't have to be done just with solid. It can be done with your regular crumbs. Now, when I'm putting together my half square triangles, especially in a pattern like this, I've incorporated 2 different patterns here. I've incorporated the stripe with the chevron here, just to give it a little bit of added, uniqueness, interest to it, so that it just really is a stunning quilt. Now, there's a lot of different ways to laying out half square triangles. There's like 35 or 36 different ways that you can lay out half square triangles. If you're interested in that, leave me a comment and I will get that information to you. This is just something I was playing with, a new idea, not making the same thing over and over again. And that's what I love about half square triangles. There are so many ways that you can lay these out and get a really unique pattern, especially original to you if you're using your crumbs. Because let's face it, we don't all have the same scraps. So you get some real interesting colors and changes through it. And it's really a great way to use up those scraps that we all have. So that's kind of all I really have for you today. I want you to pull those pieces out and start to look at them with a little bit more possibility. How can I make these a little bit more interesting for me, and not only what I put together? And that's the thing that fascinates me about quilting. And that's one of the things I love about quilting, is that anything I pull out and start putting together is going to be unique and original to me. So I hope you found this interesting, because I love just playing with what I have, putting stuff together and seeing what I can come up with. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. It does help me, and I do appreciate it. So until next time, happy quilting.